Speaking of Cults podcast is presented solely for general informational, educational, and entertainment purposes. The use of information on this podcast or materials linked from it is at the user's own risk. The views, information, or opinions expressed by the host and guests are solely those of the individuals involved and do not constitute medical or other professional advice. Hello and welcome to the Speaking of Cults podcast. This is Chris Shelton, your host. Thank you very much for joining me again this week. And I am bringing back Mitch Brisker. Now, Mitch is an ex-Scientologist who was never in the Sea Org, but actually got all the way up to working at the highest levels of Scientology because of his expertise as a filmmaker. And he was a director of a lot of internal properties the Church of Scientology produced for training and educating the staff of Scientology. It has a very formalized process for doing that. And I'm encapsulating an awful lot of information into a very quick intro here. But Mitch is somebody who, as a experienced filmmaker, that's been his thing in life. He got involved in Scientology and got all the way up to the top in a very, very important position, and was working with and under David Miscavige for many, many, many years, the leader of Scientology, and so has all kinds of insider knowledge and experience that we like to talk with him about. And so it's been a while since Mitch has been here, but he reached out to me recently because he saw some of the stuff I was doing with the Mormons, and there has been this sort of Mormon Scientology relation, connection, parallel thing that I've had in the back of my mind for many, many years. For a couple important reasons we'll probably talk about in the show here. And so today's show is going to be about this Mormon Scientology thing. And Mitch happens to have been in a position where he saw and learned things about all of this. And so I thought, I've been wanting to do the show actually for a long time. And so Mitch, welcome back to my show and the space.
Great to see you, Chris. Great to be back. I'm excited to talk to you.
Yeah, I think this will be interesting. Now, from that position, did I do a decent job accurately describing?
Yeah, I mean, I want to
tell me.
I think, the one thing I want to just kind of add to that,
please,
is that these can well, we'll get to it, but the Mormon connection, it has nothing to do with Mormonism. It has nothing to do with the religion or the culture of the Mormons, and completely and entirely separate from the connections we're going to talk about. There is just the overlap of the kinds of coercion and manipulation that both of the groups use, although they're very different. They're also very, very similar. So, and I think I had a bit of an observational advantage because at the time that I worked there, I was married to a woman who grew up in a Mormon family they're all Scientologists, except some of them are devout Mormons. I would spend family vacations with these folks, and and I got a lot of exposure to Mormon culture, not the religion. I mean, I learned about it from these guys because they would talk about it like we talk about Scientology, but so I was kind of sort of comfortable being in Mormon culture. And then, we had some jokes. I should probably just say this right now. There's a lot of Mormons got into Scientology, which you may be aware of. Scientology was very big in Salt Lake City. I mean, the president of the church, Heber Junch, was from a polygamous family. I mean, he was, if your name's Heber, you're from Utah, and you're probably LDS, or you're from a fundamentalist LDS family. So there's always been this kind of connection. But we have this thing, as you well know, in Scientology, because it's the gravitational center of their recruitment efforts, which is the personality test, right? And this thing is designed to sort of bring out shame, sort of make you feel ashamed about some aspect of yourself, and then they convince you that that shame is the reason why you need help and that they can help you. But it's a 3-card Monty, but there used to be this joke, and I don't know how broad this was, but you could be all over the place on your OCA graph, right? Remember, they grade the thing, they graph it, and then they assign all kinds of different significance to where it is. And occasionally somebody would come in and take it, and they would be flat across the top. Now, you know what that means,
Oh
right?
yeah. Feedy
Flat
weedy.
across, flat across the top means you're just, everything's fine. It's all fine. Everything's great. And when they would, because
Also wonderful. Everything is
yeah,
great. Yeah.
and when those graphs would appear, somebody would always say, "Oh, that's a Mormon missionary."
My God, that's
That's a
hilarious.
Mormon. So
That's
the Mormons,
hilarious.
yeah, they were kind of noted for doing these personality tests that were really happy and giddy. And so, but whatever, that's
That's
maybe a
funny.
little too inside. Yeah.
No, no, it's fun. It's funny because the other term they use for that in Scientology is feedy weedy, as popped out of me there, which is this sort of case that imagines that everything is just wonderful and they don't have any
Yeah.
issues or problems, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and life just couldn't be better, right? In the face of, let's say, divorce or bankruptcy or this, that, the other thing.
Yeah.
It's an unjustified view. Um, that is funny. The Mormon Church has parallels with Scientology in ways that Mormons and Scientologists will never talk about.
Right.
Secret levels, for example,
Right.
confidential scriptures, right? Levels of spiritual awareness and so-called spiritual ability that both groups provide, but they really don't talk the specifics of it. And when they
Right.
do, you're at a level where you can't talk about it. You either have your temple recommend, and what happens in temple stays in temple, or
Right.
on the OT levels, you have, of course, the all the hoops you have to jump through to swear confidentiality on 50 stacks of 50 Dianetics
Right.
books before you're allowed onto the levels, right? So
Right.
um, and there are a great many parallels, that we've been talking about in Mormonism and Scientology
Right.
in terms of a history, a legacy of abusive behavior towards its membership, but the members don't see it that way, and so therefore they go along with the stuff. That's kind of destructive cult 101 stuff. But
Right.
Mormons have a supernatural belief system that is incredibly similar to Scientology in terms of the goal of godhood.
Right.
And I didn't know that for the longest time. And it was so
Yeah.
interesting to find that out, right? To find out what all the secret doctrines of Mormonism are and
Right.
how incredibly similar to Scientology they are. So I guess my first question is knowing that and having discussed that so much on my show here this year especially, from your inside skinny, having worked at Golden Era Productions with David Miscavige, so long for so many years, um, are they aware in Scientology of what Mormonism is about and how it's structured similarly to Scientology that way?
No, not that
Okay.
I ever saw.
Okay.
Their interest in Mormonism has nothing to do with, as I said, with the Mormon religion or the Mormon
Sure,
culture,
sure.
because while they have a lot of similarities, I mean, it's worth noting that one of maybe the starkest difference is their attitude about families, because
Oh, big, good point.
yeah,
Yes.
because you
Yes.
couldn't find two groups. Well, you probably could, but for the sake of this conversation, you can't find two groups that are any more opposed in how they deal with families. I mean, when you get into Scientology, the first thing the sort of the acid test is, do you believe that you're an eternal spiritual being that is not your body?
Right.
And you know what is that's like a 10,000-year-old idea, right, Chris? I mean,
Oh
I
yeah.
don't think
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
yeah,
if that.
that it's been around for a long time. Hubbard didn't
Long
invent it,
time.
but it does separate you from your genetics. And once you're separated from your genetics, you're separated from your ancestry. And so Scientology really doesn't want you to care at all about your family tree. And yet the family tree, the ancestry for Mormons, it serves the same purpose in terms of manipulating people. But it's interesting. I mean, I think it's one of the reasons I think the guy from Mormon Stories pointed out, one of the reasons that Scientology is a $3 billion cult with maybe 14,000 members, and Mormonism is, has 300 billion and probably 14 million people, is because it's really family oriented. I mean, I think, Ancestry.com, I believe, is a Mormon owned business.
It
Uh,
is. It
yeah,
is.
yeah. So all of the genealogy stuff we have, and so is because of the Mormons, there's a lot of people that use it more than Mormons use it, have nothing to do with Mormonism.
Oh, of course.
But yeah, but it's just, it always struck me as that they're just so cruel when it comes to families. And there's been some real tragedies in Mormonism. I mean, they really do shun people when they leave, but not so much. I mean, in my in-laws, I had there was a young man. He came back. His father was a deacon in the church. He came back from mission. He was announced that he was gay. They had still embraced him. They were like, "Well, we'll pray for you." But so that's not going
Yeah,
to
it's
happen in
not.
Scientology.
That's interesting. Yeah, that wouldn't happen in Scientology. That's for sure.
There
Yeah.
there are two extremes.
Yeah.
The Mormon thing is like, especially if you get into the fundamentalist Mormons, where they're marrying a dozen 12-year-olds off to a
That's right.
an elderly man, so they can have more kids. But yeah, I'm not going to speak about the religion because I'm not schooled in it. But there is this idea that you already have a big family and they're in heaven, and you need to have
That's
lots of
right.
kids to reunite your family, and everybody needs to be sanctified by the temple so they can be together. And that when everybody whatever goes to whatever their target two is, apparently in Mormonism everybody gets their own target two that
That's
they're going
right.
to go to. But
That's right.
um be that as it may be, I mean, and that's not that wasn't David Miscavige's interest. He wasn't like, oh, what does this religion have to offer? And
Right.
it really comes down, the best way to understand his interest in Mormonism, and again, not the religion, not the culture, but in the way it is financially structured. Uh,
That's what I wondered about. If he was
yeah,
into it for the organization of it,
yes,
because it's in it.
strictly and
There we
only.
go. Okay.
Yeah, because Scientology is the mother religion
Right.
and no other religion counts. But
Right.
he'd managed to get tax exemption. And so Scientology had always existed selling books and services. That's
Hmm.
how they make money.
Yep.
And that looks awful like a business. I mean, I don't think Catholics are like, buying baptisms. I don't think they're buying funeral services, or I don't think they're getting promo to sign up for a package of 100 confessions.
That's right.
They're not doing that. They walk in, they do their thing, they walk out. If they feel motivated, they'll leave a donation. Wealthy people might, I mean, the Catholics, I'm not trying to boost Catholicism here, but as they do provide 25% of all the healthcare on the entire planet, Catholic organizations. And that's,
There are good things happening there.
yeah, so it's like,
And they
but
will
it's,
just give you a Bible if you ask for one. They won't sell
yeah,
it. They'll just give it to you.
yeah, I think
Yeah, they do that.
yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, I've seen them do it.
So
They're the first thing out of their mouth is not open your wallet, you know?
yeah, exactly. So now Miscavige is in this situation. He's got tax exemption. What is he going to do? Like
Hmm.
it's like, how can he continue to get away running a business that's now tax exempt?
Right.
So he started mentioning the Mormon Church, and I know I heard this because he had conversations with me about it. Mark Headley has also claimed that he also has expressed the experiences he had with Miscavige saying, go check out what the Mormons were doing. And that's more in respect to what they do with audiovisual, because they
Hmm.
are a very audiovisually driven organization. Back in the 80s, there's a legendary commercial director by the name of Rick Levine, famous for doing these heartstrings, lots of puppies and kids and people proposing to each other. And he was like the Hallmark card guy. So he had the Mormon account, and they did a bunch of ads in the 80s. I didn't work for Scientology then. I was working directly TV ads, so I was very aware of the work. And I just thought of them as they were really good commercials. I mean, if you looked at them, they were just messages of goodwill. They weren't selling anything. It would be like, this message brought to you by the Church of the Latter-day Saints. And I think Miscavige was very aware of this. They were the church that was actually doing TV commercials. I've never seen television commercials for any other religion other than
Right.
Mormons and Scientology.
Right.
And, there was meet a Scientologist, I'm a Scientologist, whatever it was. I don't remember which one came first. I
I was going to
think,
ask you, yeah, it's the chicken and the egg for me because I've
yeah,
gotten
I mean,
stories,
from
different
what I
versions of this.
remember is we did it first and then they copied it.
Uh-huh.
That's what I remember. And because I remember we were super complimented like, yeah, they copied us, right? Like somehow that put us on some map, right?
And that was the sequence of events that I experienced as a Scientologist is I
Yeah,
saw our campaign and then I saw the Mormon
yeah,
campaign when I was in Twin Cities, and this was around when I first went out there, and this was
yeah,
around 2009, 10-ish time period, I think, right? Somewhere around there. And I'm told the Mormons put this thing out, and it seemed to trace back to them doing
yeah,
it first. But
yeah.
I
That's
really can't be sure. I still have a little question mark on it.
yeah, that's my recollection is we did it first.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah,
Because I thought
and
they were
when
copying us. I saw the billboard and I was like, what? The Mormons? What? You know?
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And um, let me see what there was another point. Yeah, and then when we were working on it, it was, believe it or not, it was based on a campaign from the U.S. Army that was they were personalizing individual service people like, hi, I'm in the
It's,
Army and
oh,
I
that's where
have
you
this,
got the idea from.
yeah. And
Oh,
then
okay. Well,
that
you settled
became,
that question. Good.
yeah,
Okay.
and because it was like there were all these crazy jobs. There's like this woman, of course, this is before people tried to discriminate by labeling things DEI, but
Hmm.
hopefully that'll all end. But
Yeah.
this woman's a helicopter, it's a woman of color. She's a helicopter mechanic. This other person is does some kind of high-tech science, with computer science, battlefield emulation, and and these people are like, "Hey, hi, I'm in the army," and the idea was to personalize the whole thing. So then, I don't know who had the idea, but it was like probably Miscavige because he was always coming up like, "Why don't we do something like blah blah blah."
Mm.
He would often have conversations with Tom Cruise, and they would cook things up. I could always tell when it came from Tom. Like there was always stuff. Like we would do something and he would say, "Hey," sometimes he'd say, "I showed that to Tom and he really loved it." And sometimes he'd reject it in such a way that I would think, "You know what? Tom didn't like that." And it
Right.
was just
Right.
really, but he wouldn't say Tom didn't like it. But
Right. Doesn't want to
so
make it look
yeah,
like Tom's the one calling the shots, but
yeah, no, but because I mean, look, if I had a friend who was, earning $500 million a year in the box office,
I
I
mean,
might
Tom
ask
Cruise
for his
might,
opinion. Like
yeah, he
that's
might have some opinions on marketing that might be worth something.
yeah, but if I was doing it because I needed to please that person, I wanted to appease that person, I wanted to do media that person felt like regulated their emotional state because it somehow bolstered their crazy ideas. That's a whole different story. So back to the string of why he was so interested in this. So Scientology had traditionally made its money selling books and services like auditing and whatever. And there's nothing in Scientology which is not pay for play. So Miscavige began to become interested in the Mormons for two reasons. I think because he recognized there's just some things little things he dropped these little things. Like he never sat down and wrote a whole thing about it. But he'd always say these things like, take a look at what the Mormons are doing or what the Mormons are doing. And so if you think about it, they originated in the 1840s, I think 1830s,
Hmm.
something like that.
50s. Yeah. Around that time
Yeah,
period.
by the
Mid 80s.
time yeah, by the time the Civil War broke out, they had the largest standing army in America. I
Yeah.
mean, people don't really think about that. And there was shoot on sight orders to just like you could shoot Mormons like and just I don't know, get away with it.
Oh,
And
it went
then
that way as well. I was referring to that. I was thinking more about the way the Mormons would shoot other people, but
yes, that's true.
yes,
But
that did
yeah,
happen
I
too. They
mean,
were so hated in some
yeah,
communities
they
that it
were
was like
because
just,
they had
yeah,
of all of that violence, there were shoot on sight orders.
yeah.
Yet
It
they'd
was a
survived
it
all.
was a lot of back and forth on creating that antagonism,
Yeah,
but
and they had, the great Mormon handcart tragedy. You know about that it's
that's not what I'm familiar with.
you Google it, the
Yeah, yeah.
Mormon handcart tragedy. So what they did was they human trafficked people from England, from Europe and the British Isles, promising them home in Zion, which became Salt Lake City, and they recruited all these people, and then they drove them. I guess they were in Southern Illinois then when
Yeah.
they were on their way. Was it Southern Illinois? Anyway, maybe my geography is a little off. Where they murdered, where they hung Joseph Smith and then drove them out of town.
That
That
was
was in
up in
Southern.
that was up in that part of the country. I can't
Yeah,
remember the exact city name, but I remember it was up in that area because they had been down in
yeah,
Missouri, kicked out of there, gone up there, then they got kicked out of,
yeah,
it was either
yeah,
Wisconsin, Illinois, that's what I have
yeah,
conceptually, that region.
yeah. And they
Yeah,
busted Joseph Smith out of jail and hung him because he'd
yep,
ordered all his people to shut down the printing presses, which,
that's right.
Miscavige would love to do that.
That's
Um,
right.
he
Yeah,
would,
no, we covered that whole thing we covered in quite some detail with Bryce
yeah,
and
but
Shannon.
okay. So then to bring that thought forward, he's like, well, they survive. How did they survive all that? They survived
Ah,
all that by accumulating land and by taking over a city. So to me, I've always seen David Miscavige as the Brigham Young of
there it is.
Mormon.
Thank
Yeah,
you. Thank you.
yeah,
Trying to make it.
yes,
Yes, this is
because
exactly how I've.
yeah,
Yes.
and so he looked at that model and he said, wait a minute, these people donate money. They don't get anything in return except
Right.
obviously their access to the temple, their invite to the IS event, whatever it is.
That's
But
right.
they get all these perks. They don't get any kind of books or services for which, is expensive, even though he still makes all that stuff and da da da. But they survived. Like they got themselves dug in so deep that you couldn't pull out the roots.
Yep.
And so my belief is that that's completely his motivation, is to parallel that activity. So out of that came the Ideal Org, because he's not going to pay for the buildings. He's going to do what the Mormons do. He's going to get people to donate, to
Right.
build their churches, and so kind of create this entity, and like
Right.
this is why they're so intent on taking over Clearwater, because it's like,
Right.
but the other thing is in that it helps them maintain their tax exempt status because they're putting their money into churches. Like they couldn't let it accumulate. They
Right.
had to do something with it. So, and I think part of the proof to me that this is a fact, this is was a motivating factor in the whole thing, is that when I was really instrumental in working on the public information displays, that whole part of the public division, which is a division responsible for two things: recruiting, bringing new people into Scientology, and then also getting Scientologists to engage in activities themselves that brought new people in.
Yep.
Like
That's right.
that's essentially what it does.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, a few years after tax exemption, and a lot of the films were being made, and the IS had been formed, and Scientology was morphing into this entity that survived on tithing, on donations, right?
Right. Right.
Becoming more and more the structure of how the Mormons do it, right? Which is a
Right.
much better way to maintain your tax exempt status when you're a BS religion. You're not building hospitals, you're not feeding the poor, but you have to show that you're engaged in the community. You have to show that you are doing community outreach and that you exist for the common good of the people, right? So what he did was he found this calculation somewhere that Hubbard had said that the public division, Div 6, needs to be a third of the entire building,
That's right.
right? And at
Yep.
that time, you couldn't find the Division 6 in most organizations. It was usually in the back. It was in maybe two rooms. There was nothing. I mean, it was like there was a public, what do they call it? The public
Well, it's usually the
exec.
lobby of the building. It's usually the entrance of the building or the place you walk in
Yeah.
a Church of
Well,
Scientology
it didn't.
is what turns into your Div 6. It's like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
That's it.
except like
You know?
at Celebrity Center, it was in the back. You couldn't
Oh
find
yeah.
it.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it was
Yeah, yeah.
so but then all of this got transformed. And so then
Yeah. Yep.
Miscavige decided. I mean, I walked into castle where we shoot, they call it the Cine Castle. It's just a big stucco monstrosity. It's nothing like a castle. I mean, it's like sprayed on cement stucco, and like it's like, it's like a cheap Disneyland version of a castle. If I mean, if there were a cheap Disneyland. Oh yeah, Knott's Berry Farm. No, so no sponsors there. Anyway, so
Anyway, moving right along, yes.
yeah, moving right along. So, but he had no idea what to put in there. So he's like, if we don't know what to put in there, we don't know how big the floor space should be, right? And so everything at Gold shut down for 18 months, and we built a public division in a 20,000 square foot studio.
Yeah.
We ended up filling the entire thing. And then he proclaimed, well, that's the magic number. The ideal number of an org needs to be 60,000 feet. So we can dedicate 20,000 square feet. And then we'll adjust it if the building's 40,000 or 80,000 or whatever. We'll figure it out. So to me, and a lot of that public division included public outreach, right? Like it included facilities for the police to use, facilities for like-minded groups to use. And so all of this stuff becomes this cover to maintain tax exemption. And to me, that's the proof, really the proof of how this calculation, he made this calculation on shifting over to a Mormon model. Plus, the Mormons, they were also more accessible, okay, so when we were setting up Scientology Media Productions, the studio, the broadcast facility in LA, he wanted us to go around and look at some different broadcast facilities, right? And so, they have like a media buyer who, because, if you're going to put ads on TV, especially like on the Super Bowl, you're going to spend whatever they do, $4 or $5 million a year or more. You're going to have a media buyer. You're going to have somebody that you give the money to, and then they buy the media, and then they get a percentage of it. It's just how it works. And so, it was easy for them to call their media buyer and then say, hey, get these guys into some broadcast facilities in LA, because of course the broadcast facilities would really be beholden to the media buyer because that's their bread and butter. So it was kind of like business connections that got us these busman's holidays, these tours at these other facilities, right? But then he really wanted to see what the Mormons were doing. And they have a thing on the BYU campus called Mormon TV. And so he's like, you guys are going to go up and take a look at the BYU camp, go into BYU TV and see what they're doing. And that was just like, PR to PR. Like there was no special, like that was really easy to get in there. And, they shut the place down practically for a day when we went up there. I mean, it was like,
wow, really?
Oh yeah, they treated the Scientologists.
Oh, it wasn't just like a little side visit. You guys go watch us. It was a full
Oh
welcome
no,
to
it
our
was
studio.
they got a PR guy.
Okay.
And every facility that wasn't engaged in some kind of live broadcast, which there wasn't anything going on that was live, everybody just stopped and said hi, and it was massive in terms of I mean, we saw everything. And then when we were done, they said, oh, well, you have to go downtown and see the tabernacle because they're so proud of that. So, they made some calls and we got like a VIP tour of the tabernacle.
Nice.
And the thing that really blew my mind, remember at the international events like the IS event, they would translate in maybe, do you remember 6 languages maybe? Something like that. And so at the Mormon tabernacle, that massive cathedral they have, they translate in real time 120 languages.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they have like this massive, like the box seats at a football stadium, and it's all just people, 120 languages. And it blew my mind because I mean, this is, I think, the other reason why Miscavige is like, go see what the Mormons are doing, because they are so, exploiting audiovisual material to kind of keep everybody organized and informed and so forth.
Yes.
So
yes, they are. They're very good at it. They're very good at it. And they were on it early. And I can see why Miscavige was, hey, let's model after this. And let me ask you a couple of questions, because I want to make sure that me and the audience are totally on the same page here in terms of what you were saying today. Because It's not that, as you said at the very get-go, this is not a meeting of the minds in terms of dogma
No,
or belief. That's not the comparison we're making between Mormons or Scientology or what Miscavige is interested in Mormonism for. It's not the beliefs. They have an organizational structure and tax exemption to the tune of having a bank account that has hundreds of billions of dollars in it, where
right,
we're talking about an unthinkable amount of money. Truly, the Mormon Church has got nothing to worry about when it comes to money for literally centuries. They have that
right,
kind of money.
right.
And this is even if all tithing disappeared tomorrow, tithing is almost nothing to these people compared to the money they're making from investments and
Right.
from shopping malls and strip malls and
Oh yeah,
they've invested in. I understand them to be the third largest landowner in like 3 states in the
oh
nation.
yeah.
Right. So the
My
Mormon church
yeah,
is
yeah,
really on this. And
yeah.
organizationally, structurally, they're building for the future and building for strength. And
Mhm.
and let's get all that money, right? And let's really ensure our future. So Miscavige looks at that and goes, well, if I'm going to model this after anything, let's look at who's succeeding. And they're succeeding like crazy. They own an entire state of this country, and everybody lets them just get away with it. Why don't we own a town? And we have Operation Normandy. Hubbard said, take this place over.
Mhm.
We're just doing what he told us to anyway. So
Yeah,
it seems, so these two things, so I'm on the right track
yeah,
here. And
that's totally it. No,
this is
that's
how he's
totally it.
thinking.
He needed a business model, and
Yeah.
they had the best business model. Like, oh, I got tax exemption now. I got to stop acting like a business and start acting like a church. So it should,
And how does that reconcile with Hubbard, though? Because Hubbard's entire model is a business model. So does
Hubbard, he's
Miscavige,
dead. He's not going to say shit about it. Okay.
did Miscavige ever actually say
No,
anything like that?
no,
Okay.
no, no. He
Okay.
was very cautious. Like he would do something like, let's say he was going to, reshuffle a book, which they
Yeah.
do every so often.
Yeah.
And he was going to release some, piece of tech that they found in a closet somewhere,
Right.
supposedly. He
Right.
would say, well, I don't want the public to think that I'm source. So he was really cautious about that. But when I thought about that later, I thought, well, he is trying to be source. He just doesn't want the public to think it. Like that's like it was really what he was saying was, how do I do this without the public thinking that I'm doing what I'm doing?
That's
So
right.
I think that was a concern. So, but the way they're organized, there's one other aspect to it. It's a
Mm.
really great business model. If
Mhm.
you're like, you're going to go to Stanford, you're going to get an MBA, and you're going to write your thesis on, I'm going to start a religion that's a nonprofit, and how do I survive? That's how that's a great way to model it, right?
Absolutely.
There's one other aspect to it. You know that Miscavige is obsessed with having every Scientologist doing something,
Yes.
right? They need the, correspondence,
Always, always,
yeah, you're
always got
always
to be doing
doing
something.
something. And,
Yep. Hubbard
and
was like that too. And if you're not, that's why they're writing you endless numbers of letters and
right,
calling you all the time.
right,
Yeah.
right. So in Mormon culture, the way it's organized, you've heard these things. They have a parish and they have a stake, and
Yep.
and it's actually and I think this is one of the reasons why it's survived as well as it has. It's a what do you call it? It's a non I can't think of the word right now, but
What's the
it's
concept?
well, all of everybody in the religion who identifies as a Mormon is on their organizational board.
That's it. Exactly. And Hubbard and rather Miscavige has said that exact phrase on stage is everybody's on the org board.
Yeah, he wants everybody on their board, but the Mormons have pulled this off.
Yep.
And I first discovered this because I was actually, before I worked for Gold, I was in on the Salt Lake at Bonneville Salt Flats, which is actually in Nevada. It's about an hour and a half from Salt Lake City. And I was there and I was shooting a film for Porsche, like a marketing film, like a 10-minute, you know, kind of branded entertainment kind of thing. And so we got a crew and out of Salt Lake City. They have great film talent in Salt Lake City. They have studios there. They have film people, broadcast people. I mean, they have a lot of really talented people there. And one of the guys who was like our production manager, he carried with him a little black notebook with his whatever other materials he had for work. right? Filmmaking is a very portable business. You tend to have kits and things you carry, but he always had with him this black book. And in that black book, it had every name of everybody in his parish or his stake or whatever it was.
Ward, I think they call them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a ward. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think a stake is smaller than a ward. I
I
kind of.
think the stake is the next level up,
Oh,
actually,
okay,
is in
great.
the
Yeah,
hierarchy.
I
I
don't
believe
know.
in
I
the
don't. So
hierarchy,
his
that's how it
ward,
is.
right?
Yeah.
So he had, and he showed it to me. I mean, I saw this thing, right?
Wow. Every name of every person.
Everybody,
Yeah.
contact everybody, and so
Yeah.
everybody has a duty and a responsibility, and they all keep
That's
track of
right.
each other. And
Yep.
this was another thing that Miscavige was really jealous of. He was like, "How do we get everybody on the org board?"
Right.
And I
Oh,
knew he.
was this around the time that we start seeing more and hearing more about OT committees?
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. That was my next point. So now
Yeah.
his way of doing it was to create OT committees. And I got to tell you, the chairman of the OT committee holds, in my view, the same position in Scientology as a bishop in the Mormon church.
Sure, sure.
This
The ward president, the person who's
exactly
kind of organizing the neighborhood
right,
for the church.
right,
They're kind of the
right,
person who's got their
right,
fingers in everybody's pie, and they're keeping
right,
an eye on everybody. And it's a
right.
loyalty position. It's a watchman position, but it's
Mhm.
also a worker position. You're doing an awful lot of work
Yeah,
organizing things for the church.
yeah. So there are the bishops. So the ward is the OT committee. Like
Yeah,
it is an absolute parallel for the way that
that's
they do it.
true. That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
anyway,
And he wanted
that's
to get all that activated. And in a way, he did.
oh, he
A way
absolutely
he
did.
did, right? There are active OT committees. They did get things done. That is the only way fundraising happened in some areas. I can certainly say Twin Cities is one of those areas. They certainly got some things going in Clearwater that weren't happening prior, with the Clearwater OT committee.
Right.
Out in LA, there was some OT committee action, minimal from our position in management at the time, but it was
Right.
something, and we didn't really appreciate it for this level of view of it. I wish I kind of had more of a bigger picture view of it because
Yeah.
I would have done more with it when I was in management, actually.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was just data points that then later kind of lined up.
Yeah.
Um, but they don't understand. I mean, they don't really know anything about, they're very kind of insulated and they're very prejudiced against other religion. Prejudice is the kind of the wrong word because, when
Who, the
people who,
Mormons?
no, Scientologists.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I
Prejudice
mean,
is a
Mormons
good
have
word.
their own really bad racist past,
Amongst
which,
other things, and they are a cult.
yeah,
But
yeah, and
the in-out thing is very big in Mormonism and Scientology. Absolutely.
yeah, and
Yeah.
they're not real big on LGBTQIA plus
Nope.
culture.
Nope.
Um,
I can see
he,
why the Mormons would be a model for him on that as well, right? There's a lot of parallels.
Yeah, and it's like it may be the same in Scientology. I know in Mormonism because I had some Mormon in-laws who were gay, one specifically who was gay, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like the edict is where you can be gay and be a Mormon, you just can't do gay. Like just don't do any gay stuff.
And that's the edict in Scientology pretty
Yeah,
much at this
exactly.
point, right? They don't tell you, and even when I was overseeing audit team that was supposed to handle this, right? Audit the gay away,
Yeah,
it was always the point that, well, look, all we're really putting down on the line here is don't don't act gay, right? Yeah, okay, yeah, got it. This is
yeah,
how you feel. I understand. I'm not saying you don't feel that way, but you can't act on it. And this is where the whole hinge of the control in Scientology was all about, you can be gay, but don't do gay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't be doing
Right.
gay stuff.
That's right.
Uh,
They really had a thing on it.
yeah,
And of course, the thing that debunks all of it immediately in Scientology is you're a spiritual being who has no gender. What the hell are you all hung up on this for? But Hubbard just wouldn't let it go. So we had to all
yeah,
believe them.
yeah.
Yeah.
He was really harsh. I mean, I'm surprised that it's such a violation of public policy to espouse those kinds of anti-gay sentiments. That
Yeah.
I'm surprised. I mean, you're supposed to like follow public policy when you have tax exempt status, but I guess
Okay.
religions kind of get away with the anti-gay thing.
All to every one of them. Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, some
Absolutely.
of them have embraced it. I mean, well, I'm trying to think, Methodist, maybe there was this gay Methodist woman who spoke out politically. It was like I don't know, a year ago or something. There's
Mm,
definitely some more inclusive Christian religions, but for the most part, they're very fundamentalist.
yeah. No, the
So
Mormons are
that,
very anti-LGBTQ, but they're struggling just like Scientology is okay, well, publicly, well, we'll kind of put some tolerance there, but really, we fucking hate you people,
oh
is
yeah,
kind of how
totally.
the
Oh no, I
feeling
mean,
is,
look,
you know.
and it's really bad in the C word.
Oh, the worst,
Really bad. And
the
then,
worst.
because people at Gold, when you're at Gold, you kind of feel like, I know the staff up there, they really feel like nobody's paying attention and nobody's listening. Like you're at a retail, like at a public org, like what I refer to as retail Scientology, as opposed to corporate Scientology. Like you worked in corporate Scientology,
Yep,
right?
yep, yep.
But
Good,
if you
good.
go down to LA org or whatever, that's retail Scientology. And
Yeah.
even though everybody's experiencing whatever they're experiencing, there are real differences. And one of the real differences at a place like Gold, which is surrounded by barbed wire and the cameras are all, looking outward, they just let it fly. They just let their hatred fly because there's
Wow.
nobody in earshot,
Right.
right? So,
No
I mean,
filters necessary.
I had a guy on my crew. He's a nice guy, third generation Scientologist. Uh, and the gay jokes were just nonstop. I mean, eventually I told him, just lighten up on that shit because I don't appreciate it.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't. So I took him aside one day and I said, if I didn't know better, I'd say you were molested by a scout leader because all of the people that I know are that obsessively anti-gay usually have some pretty dark skeletons. So will you just shut the
Wow.
fuck up forever about that? And I couldn't get in trouble because if I got sent to ethics, then the entire operation was shut down. So 40 people were out of work. So I was able to express to some degree these things. Like they just like, oh yeah, Mitch doesn't like gay jokes. He doesn't like the word wog. I mean, I had some boundaries even when I was in Scientology, which I exploited, and I only had them because of my position. But then as that disintegrated, then I got the full brunt because eventually it does. I mean, the arc
Yep.
of anyone in Scientology, it doesn't matter if you were in a position like me or you're just a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed 16-year-old who wants to join the Sea Org and save humanity. Eventually, you are going to be blamed for things you didn't do. Anything good you do, somebody else is going to take credit for it, and you're going to be traumatized and humiliated. I mean, it just happens without fail. So
It does. It's a uniform, regular thing. I was there for
yeah,
enough years to watch it happen over and over in a
yeah,
cyclic, systematic way where I realized it
yeah.
wasn't about personalities anymore. This is a system thing. And once that was clear, which was when I was on the RPF, that became clear to me, everything kind of changed in terms of how I thought about the organization and what we were doing.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah,
as you say, systematic. It's institutionalized. It's not
that's
like
right.
there's even a script. It's just
No, you
part
could
part of
remove
it.
Miscavige, this would still go on.
Yeah, it would
Right.
still go on. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
there's no happy outcome at all.
no.
There's no golden days of the past that people could go back to. So, although I occasionally talk to people who actually believe that David Miscavige is the problem, which
Yeah.
kind of blows my mind.
It's a journey and the rabbit hole is deep. Let's just put it that way. Um,
Yeah, I
you know,
guess. I
it,
guess.
it, it is, and not everybody's willing to walk the road, and that's part of the. I don't know. I could say problem, but it's just the situation. It's just how people are. Some people want to go deeper than others, and I wish everybody would want to figure it all out and see how it actually all works,
Yeah,
all the way to the bottom. But not everybody's there. I have an
yeah.
audience of people who really do want to know that stuff, and we go there all the time. I wish it were bigger, but it is kind of what it is.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But
For
let's get back
sure.
to this. Let's back to Miscavige because I'm very, very curious about your interactions with him on this topic specifically, right? So he sends you over to BYU. He wants you to, this comes up a number of times. Look at the Mormons. Look at what the Mormons are doing. And
Yeah.
generally speaking, my experience with Miscavige is when he's telling you something two or three times, you really get the point. Oh, this is really fucking important to this guy. Because he doesn't repeat himself that often, you
Right.
know, and stuff like that, right? Did you get that impression, or am I just kind of, is that my
Oh no,
projection?
I totally got that impression. I mean, look, these are all things that happen. They're like data points.
Hmm.
I'm not necessarily processing them the way I am now. When I was
Yeah.
there, I
Yeah.
thought, oh, that's interesting. I started as the years went on, and because I do have some familiarity with Mormon culture, I started to think, this guy's like Brigham Young. I mean, he sees himself like,
Yeah.
that's the, he can banish his wife and nobody gives a shit. And they don't. They don't. He could shoot. I mean, David Miscavige could shoot a person on Fifth Avenue,
Yep.
and he would obviously get in trouble with the law and so forth. But there would be people that would say, well, if he shot him, he deserved it. Yeah, I mean, it's just like,
Exactly. That's
he sent his wife away. She must have done something, but then he's still wearing the same wedding ring. I mean, when I met him in 1990, he had this very specific, this little silver band wedding ring. I know I was married once, and if I ever did get married again, which I doubt that I will, I wouldn't wear the same wedding band. I
no,
just
of
wouldn't.
course not.
I
I
would I
mean,
would I would get one that was the opposite. So and that's not a hit against my former wife. She's a wonderful person, but it's just you want to celebrate it newly. That fucking wedding ring never came off in all the time that I knew him. And I always thought that would change. I would sit in meetings and I'd look at him. Two things would happen every time I met with him. Every time, 28 years worth of meetings would be like, wow, I really forgot how short he is. Like, you just never get used to it. And I'm not short shaming here, because if he was 6'4", I don't think he'd be like a good person all of a sudden. But it would just always strike me like, wow. And the other one was the wedding ring.
mm,
Like, why are you wearing that wedding ring? Nobody see. We all, we knew that
yeah.
she was somewhere. She wasn't around him anymore. And he had this kind of weird dragon lady who was like his like part bodyguard, part, concubine, part like fashionista mirror. He's wearing a black Italian motorcycle jacket. She's wearing a black Italian motorcycle. They're both wearing the same brands of jeans and da da da. And they're like, which a lot of that part of the culture came from Miscavige, from Tom Cruise, because
Mm,
when he started, it's a narcissistic trait to mirror, right? Mirroring is just a major part.
sure.
And so these two guys mirrored one another. Miscavige started living like a celebrity and flying in Tom's jet and wearing like $4,000 suits and
Yeah.
custom, jewelry and just crazy stuff. And, never stopped wearing Sea Org uniforms except for, on the ship when during the main voyage event, which was like, a real special deal. He'd put on this, custom made Italian designed, super form fitting,
Right. Right.
thing,
That's right.
he's traveling
Oh,
with
he's got
like
this
a,
muscle shirt. That's right. For his uniforms. I
yeah,
remember seeing that going, Jesus, couldn't he have gotten that a large? This when I was in the Sea Org, I was like, that's a
yeah,
little tight, isn't it? Like he was,
yeah.
you know.
That's when he was really roided out and
Yeah.
working out like all the time. And
Yeah.
he was
Early
definitely,
90s. Early
yeah, he
90s.
was definitely showing all that stuff off. So
Right. He was
and
so
then
enamored by Cruise and that whole thing, I guess.
yeah. So I think over the years, Tom has become more of a cult leader, and he's taken on cult leader,
Right.
characteristics, and Miscavige has taken on super celebrity characteristics. So it's a weird kind of mirroring. They're very connected to one
They
another.
are. There is an interesting thing
Yeah,
happening with those two that both of them satisfy each other's narcissistic supply.
yeah, it's amazing,
And so you get this
and
connection between them.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the few times that I experienced Tom, when Miscavige was nowhere around, he was really a nice guy. Like
Right.
he was really like gracious and giving to his fans. And I had 4 days on the set. I was invited to go watch them shoot War of the Worlds. I think I was back in 2004.
That's right. You told that whole story about him doing,
Yeah,
yeah, telling giving
yeah,
the
and so
autographs and
yeah,
staying
exactly. And
hours
so
afterwards.
Yeah, and he's like very a real sort of a gracious guy. He's like, but you know, he's just different around Miscavige. It's just, you
Well,
know,
I actually I put Tom, I noted Tom Cruise earlier because I wanted to circle back to this, and I have
sure,
some questions, and you're one of the very few people who can provide, real direct observation of those two in the room at the same time, and so I do have questions. One of them being that this personality shift you're bringing up, because I find that fascinating. Tom Cruise is somebody that I have typified or described in very
uh-huh,
harsh terms, because I have a very low opinion of that man because of the power that he holds and
right,
what he chooses to
right,
do with it, right? And how he treats people privately, and because of his Scientology beliefs, is harsh and unforgivable in some ways, right? Even as within his own family, he does things that I find morally reprehensible. So
right.
I've made that clear. And yet I do find myself running into these anecdotes over and over and over and over and over from people who are, when you're listening to actors, you're listening to people who are students of human behavior. They're not just
Right.
people who have a different job. They study people. So when they make remarks about Tom Cruise over and over and over and over about what a gracious, warm, friendly, caring person he is, you're kind of like, Jesus, I guess he really comes across this way to people. So
Well, I mean,
I have to wonder, about this disparity you bring up.
yeah, I mean, I'm not a Tom Cruise fanboy. I mean, the last Mission Impossible, uh, it was, I always kind of watched his films the way I would watch, uh, what's his name? Oh God, my brain. You know, the actor director who did Braveheart, Mel
Oh, Mel
Gibson.
Gibson.
Yeah,
Mel
I
Gibson.
mean, the
Yeah.
guy's he's a horrible person. He's an anti-Semite. He beat his former wife.
Yep.
But I'm
Yep.
like, okay, I'm going to compartmentalize that because he's
Yep.
really a good filmmaker. And
It's undeniable. I know. I feel exactly the same way. I'm so
yeah,
convinced
yeah,
about
and I
him.
think he's mellowed over the years, and people change, and
Yeah.
I'm always going to give them the grace to change, but I'll grant them. But
Yeah.
you know, Tom, I thought for a long time he was a really remarkable actor. I mean, he came close to winning Oscars. He was nominated supporting at least
True.
once, and
Yep.
then he sort of evolved into this kind of, you know, the king of the potboilers. I mean, he only works on these potboiler films,
Yep.
meaning they're specifically made for big audiences to fulfill their expectations of an action adventure film, and
Yep.
they make a ton of money, and that's all he does.
That's right.
That's because David Miscavige is his career counselor. You know, a
Is
lot of,
he?
I think so, because why else would he have? There's no more Born on 4th of July. There's no more Magnolia.
Nope.
There's
The Last
there's not
Samurai was the
even
last
there's not
serious kind
even
of
Tropic Thunder, which was a brilliant acting job.
true.
Uh, be,
True.
because they're like it's he's a cash cow for Scientology. So
Yeah.
I kind of always, yeah, and you know, I never personally saw him engage in any kind of abuse, but I have I know a lot of people who were suffered from it and
Yeah.
experienced it, and they're all credible. Like I
No,
have,
Tom's abuse is passive. Tom passes things off to people or makes
yeah,
demands where he doesn't have
yeah,
to physically hurt them or do something to them. It's
right,
just his wish manifested,
right,
rips a family member out of the family for 2 straight years. And Tom really couldn't care less, right? That kind of thing. You just go,
yeah,
come on,
yeah,
man. What are you
yeah,
doing?
yeah. I mean, the guy is, you know,
Yeah,
he's estranged from his only biological child. All three of
that's
his
right.
marriages were sacrificed at the altar of David Miscavige and Scientology. Yeah, so I
Yeah,
mean, he's both. I mean, the being gracious to his fans and all that, that's just good professionalism.
it is. And
And
he is a professional. There's no
yeah,
way to deny that.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But personally, I find him, a difficult person. Um, but tell me more about this personality shift because I find that fascinating. So when he gets around Miscavige, his worst version comes out. Is that what we're
But
kind of?
it's no, it's not, it's just
What did you see?
I well, because I only saw him when he was with Miscavige. We were not just alone. We were like at a dinner at the patrons
Oh,
ball
sure,
at,
sure.
you know, we were at a table with 6 other people, or he was taking his manager, his agent on a tour of gold, or Ron Howard on a tour of gold because he's trying to sell him on, you know, which he did on using a Scientology developed sound
Oh, Clear
recording.
Sound. That's right.
Yeah,
On
yeah,
that
because
on the movie with with Nicole Kidman,
yeah,
the
Far and Away. Yeah,
Far
they
and
did
Away.
actually use it, and it was just like, the sound department on that film just rebelled. They just shut the thing down, shut it away. I mean, and interestingly enough, because I was so involved in developing their filmmaking facilities, the way they record now on the set, or the way they record films, is they still run it through a clear sound rig, but everything else they do exactly the way Hollywood does it. They've adopted those because they are best practices. And the clear sound thing is whatever. It's just this massive box that supposedly makes things sound better, but
Right.
I don't
No,
think it
it's
does.
it's all perception and beauty in the eye of the beholder and all that.
Yeah, totally,
You know,
totally.
according to any Scientologist you ask, the sound is crystal clear and beautiful, right? And everybody else in the world's like, I guess.
Yeah, and Hubbard, amongst above all things technical and outside of Scientology, he fancied himself to be like a god of sound technology.
Right. And he definitely was not.
No, he
I
was not. As a matter of
yeah.
fact, I'm kind of living proof that that all didn't work, because he proclaimed in 1963 that he was going to make all these films, and that's the only way Scientology was going to survive. And he didn't really get that going in earnest until the 70s, but they tried for 30 years and they couldn't. And he wrote volumes on on every aspect of the cinematic arts.
Yep.
And that's what they followed. And he grabbed the best books. You could walk into any bookstore and say, hey, give me your top books on film, and you'd get the really good books, right? There's
Hmm.
a technical bookstore here in LA that if you go in there and ask them, they'd have they would basically have the syllabus from every good, reputable film school. So he found those and had them read those, and they still fell flat in their faces because he didn't know what he was doing. And
Nope.
so, after 30 years, they started hiring people. They hired me and they hired some other people because nothing he said to do actually worked. But they would still keep that stuff in force. So you'd have to figure out a workaround to kind of incorporate it, but not incorporate it. It
Right.
could be very frustrating. And it
Yeah.
was both with technical things and also organizationally, how you make films. He had his own ideas about the posts, which created a lot of chaos. Like,
Yeah.
he didn't understand what's called production management technology.
Mm.
And so he sort of took assistant directors, production managers, and like an associate producer who would be like a line producer, somebody intimately involved like every day with the film. And he tried to wrap those up into one person
Uh,
and then make the other aspects into departments. And it was just chaos.
yeah,
It was just,
total madhouse.
yeah,
And honestly, the more you look into filmmaking, and especially at the professional level, the more impressive and truly awesome in a way, awe-inspiring it is
yeah,
how complicated it is. I mean, it's just people have no idea. They think like the director just says stuff and it just magically happens, and they don't realize there's this entire organizational structure that is comes together for a period of months or maybe a couple of years, does this thing and then dissipates and goes and reforms somewhere else. And the structure
yeah,
can be massive
yeah,
and quite unwieldy. Yeah, it's really
yeah,
something.
yeah. Especially on location. I mean, I remember,
Oh,
it's kind of a unique case, but on War of the Worlds, which is a Spielberg film, so it's going to be huge. But I went to visit them. I think we were in New Jersey, where the house was, the Tom
mm,
Cruise character house. The
yeah.
exterior was there, and then nearby in a studio, they built the whole interior. And that shoot had about 30 trucks. Like, it was a city. It was
Yeah.
massive.
Yeah.
And they
30.
moved and reset up that whole thing overnight, like 25 miles away. And you just don't even like, where is the army of people? So yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
All the, I mean, it's really, really impressive.
it's
So,
pretty amazing.
so you see
Plus,
all
you're
that
not
and
at
you
home. You're living in a hotel,
go,
and you're working out of a bag, and it's just really nuts.
must have been crazy. But let's go back to the Mormon thing. Let's go back on that
Sure.
thread now, because I wanted to go off on Tom for a little bit. But just
Yeah, it's
getting back
fine.
onto this thing, here's what I'm curious about. I've been watching, and I can't take credit for this term. I actually credit Jeffrey Augustine for this, but it's a I think, a completely valid description now of where Scientology is going, and that is boutique religion for the VIPs, right? For the whales. It's becoming more and more catering to those people. And we see, as we've described, without making Mormon comparisons, I've said for years now that Miscavige is doing this purposefully, maybe organically, because it's kind of a necessity since the socioeconomic foundation of Scientology is shrinking because our economy is shrinking, and the ability of middle class to afford $2,500, $3,000 intensives is kind of not there the way it used to be.
Right.
Um, I think that's a factor in Scientology's shrinkage worldwide, actually, because of that factor alone. But I also think that that there that there was kind of an inevitability to this because Scientology just doesn't work. And so so you can
Right.
only sell the promises for so long. The model depends on a revolving door of people coming in, finding out it's bullshit and leaving, but dumping a pile
Right.
of cash in the meantime. And
Right.
that's kind of the model, right? And as long as you're delivering books and, services, you can keep that model going because, it's a pay to play thing. They have to pay to be part of it. And that's the whole process. But Miscavige somehow is like, yeah, that ain't really what I think we should be doing. And so when you tell me, well, he looks to the Mormon model and real estate and tithing, and I go, oh my God, that really clicks into place for me. I go, oh, he's doing this on purpose.
Yeah, it's not, I would not characterize it as a boutique because if you were, you would use the word boutique in your marketing. Like, you
Oh,
know,
I think it's where it's going. I don't know that it's there yet.
yeah,
I
no, I
think
don't,
there's a
I
morphing.
don't think maybe organically it's going that way because it has no choice.
Yeah,
But keep in mind, the rich people, the wealthy people you're talking about,
yeah,
they're getting wealthier right now.
yeah, yeah.
Like they're not hurting. They're making more money. They're on the Trump
But only those
bandwagon.
guys at the top are. The guys at the bottom are getting fucked left, right, and center. And the Chase wave was the final gasp of, that was the fourth credit card fraud evolution Scientology engaged in.
That we know about.
That we
Yes.
know about exactly
Yeah.
over all the decades, right? And so,
Yeah.
I mean, you go back to postulate checks of the 70s. You can go to the
Yeah.
the fact they were setting up credit unions at the missions in the late 70s. That was one of the reasons they got busted. A number of other things, that financial shenanigans that have been going on in Scientology.
Yeah.
And they have this credit card thing. And at first they scammed Amex, and Amex told them to fuck themselves. And then they
Right.
scammed another credit card company. They shut down. And then the Chase wave happened. And now I don't think they've got the ability to do a credit card wave like they used to, because I think at this point, I'm thinking, based on information I hear from insiders in the banking industry, that at this point, Scientology's reputation is just, for if charges are coming in for Scientology services now, they've kind of got it flagged. So I don't think they're
Yeah.
going to get away with that now,
I think maybe any day you're going to see cash only at the register.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
that's
Or if you want to
bubbling.
pay us in gold or diamonds, we'll take it.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
people's, need for self-actualization comes, gets put in the back seat when they can't even feed their kids. And so
Oh yeah, totally.
that,
Well,
right?
here's an interesting fact to it. When we did under Miscavige's orders the Division 6 workout to figure out how big Division 6 needed to be. I mean, they didn't buy a building for 18 months. Everything was on hold because they didn't know what size. And his
Right.
paranoia was, what if we buy a building and it's too small and we can't put everything in it?
Sure.
So we did this whole thing. It was me and two other guys. We designed, or actually really one guy, we designed the whole thing, figured out the displays and how the whole thing worked. And then we turned it over to this Gensler, this architectural company. And then
Yep.
they worked out the design, the specific design details and the space planning and all that kind of stuff. But when we were working it out, there was this, you have to turn it over to your staff, right? Like you have to give it to your Div 6 staff and say, here's how you use it. And the way they do that is, they have like a course and a check sheet and like how to use your new Div 6. And I am not kidding. I don't know what the final language was, but Miscavige ordered that when someone comes in, you just direct them to the displays.
Hmm.
You ask them if they're interested in something specific like Hubbard or Dianetics or the purification rundown and send them over to that display. You are not to bother them because he doesn't trust the staff could ever answer somebody's question. He hates the staff,
Yep.
especially Sea Org members. He just loathes them and despises them and thinks of them as second-class citizens. He only likes celebrities and rich people and
Isn't that
anybody that
wild?
can give him power. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Isn't
But
that
one of the,
wild? Because he's a Sea Org
yeah,
member first.
well, yeah, but he
It's just,
doesn't, I've said this before,
yeah,
he doesn't consider that he's in the Sea Org. He's like the president of the United States.
right.
He's like, I'm the commander in chief. I'm not in the military. So
Right.
they're just grunts. But in this workout of teaching them how to use this public information display, it basically said, if you ask these people for a credit card, we're going to send you to the RPF. Like it was hands off.
Wow.
Like the
Wow.
policy was do not insist, let them leave, they'll come back. So it had this
He just
super,
canceled hard sell. He just
yeah,
canceled it.
but it had the superficial veneer. But in reality, there was credit card fraud left, right, and center,
Right. Right. Of course
and
there was.
not so much at places like the test center, really. That place is a joke. Okay. People are like rejoicing because they think they shut it down. That place never recruited anybody.
No, of course
It,
not. That's why
it,
I think it's a Pyrrhic victory. It just doesn't
Yeah,
mean anything.
it's only there because it doesn't matter if the lights are on or off.
Nope.
Miscavige can tell the IRS, but look, I've got a community outreach center right in Hollywood Boulevard. As long as it's there,
That's right.
like there's
That's the
no,
thing. That's
yeah,
right. That's right. I wanted to go back to this Mormon thing in terms of the tax exemption because there were some
sure,
points you made earlier, and I want to make sure I'm getting them, and I want to make sure the audience is too. And so we talked about how it's not the dogma, it's not beliefs, that's not where they're meeting. And so, tithing and real estate, and you go, okay, good. That's what maintains tax exemption, not the rituals or the fact that auditing is
right,
happening or the fact that people are buying books. To the IRS, they don't give a shit about what you're doing in the church. That's not their business.
right,
What they care about is that the money you're making is reinvested as they
right,
see it
right,
back into the church business. So
right,
you're not running off to Tahiti every 6 months for
right,
your big vacation, Mr. Cult Leader. You're reinvesting the money back in the business.
right,
And it doesn't matter if it's working or not working, if you're deceiving people or not deceiving. They don't care about any of that. They just want to see the flow of money is as they see it on the up and up.
right.
That's what I'm understanding from what Miscavige is wanting from this Mormon parallel. Am I
Yeah, that's a perfect characterization of it.
okay, great.
It's a
Good.
business model. He's copying
Yeah.
a business model because he can't keep that enterprise going on just selling books and services, especially because so much of the sales is based on, oh, you're not doing well. Well, that's because you're bumping into your next level. And
That's
so
right.
there's this, and that's going to run out because there's nothing after OT8. And he knows
Exactly.
that. So what's
That's
he
right.
going to do? Like it's a race against time. Someday he'll solve the problem of how to say, well, there's no OT8. I don't know. Maybe he'll try to make something up, but I kind of if he does, I'd love to see it. But he's going to run out of things to sell because the whole carrot's not going to work. And as you know, there's a lot of people that'll say, well, I found, Scientology, it kind of folds it clear, right? Because
Mhm.
everything below clear, you can find the pure version of it out in the world.
Yep.
Everything is some weird, repurposed, weird, parsed, sliced, diced version of a lot of helpful information that's out there. And so people do get into Scientology and they do take an ups and downs in life course. And they do find out that, oh, yeah, my uncle is like, he keeps promising to do things for me, but then he takes the money away. And maybe if I just get away from him, people find all these things useful and then pass clear. It will make you insane.
That's right.
When
It
when
will make you insane.
Yeah, it will make you insane. I mean,
Yeah.
I definitely, like, I got up to OT5 and I still think about the shit
Mm.
that went on that level and the stuff that I believed, and it's crazy. Like you really lose yourself. I mean, this is, and people characterize it as family destroying, check, and human trafficking, check. But what about identity stealing? What about preventing an individual from, because whatever stuff you have to construct an identity out of, you're going to give that up and then take their version of it. And you're going to make your identity out of that stuff. And you are going to be lost as a person. And so, I heard some guy say, yeah, well, no, I never did OT levels. And I'm like, I'm jealous.
I know,
Like,
right?
I'm
I
just
hear
like,
you.
yeah, I'm jealous. Like, I wish I never would have done that shit.
I hear you,
Uh,
man. I know. I get it. That was actually one of the best descriptions I've ever heard of exactly what it's doing to you on those OT levels, by the way, about in terms of, you just have to give up all this stuff in terms of what makes
you
your
do.
identity your identity. Yeah.
It starts with you're an eternal spiritual being and you're not your body. That may be a true statement, right? But if that is true for you, um, you need to discover how that's true. You
Oh, yeah.
can't, if you're spoon fed how that's true, you're being manipulated. So sorry, but
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Especially when
that's
you're
the
being
deal.
directed to do the things you're doing in those auditing
Yeah, but
sessions.
I want to put something out.
Yeah.
I want to just
Yeah.
respond in one way to your statement about, headed towards being a boutique religion, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Please tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, and that could very well be. I mean, it could end up being like this Christian Science reading rooms where they have books and then they do these sojourns on the free winds and they did this trip. I don't know, it was over a year ago. They had maybe 100 of their biggest donators. Uh, they took them on a very expensive trip to some part of Italy. Very, very lovely. They sent me, it was one of the last pieces of mail I ever got. They sent me a brochure from this trip. They were doing it to raise money for the L. Ron Hubbard Hall,
Oh,
right?
right.
But
Right.
literally it was, I'll see if I can find it. I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
There was a yearbook photo of the whole class. And there was maybe like 100. And these are the people keeping Scientology funded. It's
Yeah.
not, but here's the deal. And tying
Yeah.
this into going back to the idea that there's some helpful stuff. People find helpful stuff at the beginning of the bridge before everything sort of flies just haywire. Have you noticed the intense resurgence right now in the Dianetics campaign?
I have
Have you
noticed
noticed
that
this?
there.
Yeah,
Well, here's what I know is that the 75th anniversary, Miscavige wanted a Dianetics campaign, and so they've got a
right.
Dianetics campaign. It's not going anywhere, but they believe internally. I've heard from a number of people, they are all hot on it. They think it's going to flood the doors, and they're going to have to get bigger buildings. They're literally talking that way, and this thing is just dead on arrival, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. Well, so this is something it's how I ended up working for the churches. I did TV ads
Yeah.
for Dianetics back in the 80s for Jeff Hawkins. And that really was a legitimate campaign. And it really did legitimately get the book on the New York bestsellers list for the second time.
Yep.
Uh, and then Miscavige reorganized the entire marketing and ordered all those guys up to gold. And then eventually I went up there. And ever since then, they've never been able to have a successful Dianetics campaign, which is fine with me.
Of
I don't
course,
think,
we're happy about that.
well,
Yeah.
I don't think there ever could be another one because there's a certain thing that can happen with marketing when you have a product that isn't tainted by public opinion. And Dianetics wasn't at that point. There was a
Yep.
ton of surveys and the associations with Scientology were very negative, but not with L. Ron Hubbard. Like in the 80s, he was unscathed from much of Scientology's reputation. And the Dianetics book had higher name recognition, uh, according to per surveys, legit, like done by outside people surveys. Uh, it had very high name recognition. So when that campaign was done in the 80s, and help me out here because you would probably know this
Mhm.
from your management perspective, but you remember there was a policy letter written, books make booms, right? You
Oh,
know what I'm
I
talking
very
about?
much remember books
Yeah, yeah,
make
yeah.
booms. Yeah, it was huge. Yeah, yeah.
And that was focused around Dianetics,
Around books and Dianetics, and
but
yes,
it
books, books, books.
really emphasized
Yeah,
Dianetics on
it
books in
it did.
general. Yeah,
Yep.
because, and this is a whole nother episode we could do sometime, but because Dianetics did have a legitimate explosion, like it did go viral in the early 50s. And then, like, most viruses, they just die out, which it did. But that led to a huge influx of people when Scientology happened. And then the campaign in the 80s led to this huge influx of people in the 90s. And I worked on a bunch of Dianetics campaigns. Some of them were just, I mean, they were always Miscavige's idea. He'd come up with some crazy idea, some of which I think he got from Tom. The
Mm.
craziest one was back in when was that? Late 90s, early 2000s. It's when we started seeing lots of pharmaceutical ads for antidepressants, and half the ad would be side effects, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
yes, yes. They
it's
still are.
when,
It drives me crazy watching
yeah, but
ads for,
when we first started seeing that, it's
yeah,
even worse today. We
yeah.
first started seeing that, and Miscavige, he identified that as the competition for Dianetics, which is, from a marketing perspective, is the craziest thing in the world. Because if you've got a person that's severely depressed and you say, here's a bottle of antidepressants, take when you feel better, or here's this, 700-page book, it's very dense, very difficult to get through,
Yep.
and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, which do you want?
Yep. Yep.
So it's not a competition.
Right.
The actual competition would be books like, I don't know, The Notebook, or Live Well and Be Rich, or whatever, these
Yep.
self-help books. And in the 80s, when we were working at Dianetics, it only sold 3 million copies. These other books had sold like 40, 50, 60 million copies. So
Oh
he
yeah.
did
Eat,
he
pray,
didn't
love. Oh yeah. People are
yeah,
looking
yeah,
for something, some relief, and
yeah,
Dianetics ain't giving
yeah.
it to them.
Yeah, I think the last I looked, The Notebook had sold 60 million copies, which Dianetics is still boasting about 20 million, and it was published in 1950.
Right.
So, but the thing is that this is out of desperation. Like, if they're putting a lot of money and energy into a Dianetics campaign, then they're desperate.
Oh,
Like,
definitely.
yeah,
Definitely.
because
Yeah.
Dianetics has always been the Trojan horse to get people into Scientology.
Right.
And it keeps coming up. Like I saw ads on Facebook. They
Mhm.
have, I think they're AI influencers. They got a couple of them, and they're running them on like Facebook Marketplace.
I could
But
see that. I could see
yeah,
that.
no,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And Miscavige is probably throwing some money at it at this point because maybe he is desperate. I've always had it.
Oh no, he's probably got the entirety of S&P and Gold working on this problem.
Wow.
Yeah, because the
Wow.
whole Freedom TV thing failed, like all
Right.
these programs they've done have
Right.
just failed. And I mean, it's like I wrote Tony an email when the Jason Doring show was announced.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on that?
Well,
Yeah.
it's just never going to happen. It's never
Yeah.
going to happen. It's
Yeah.
never going to happen. And I've seen this happen over and over and over again. It's like, come up with an idea, announce a show. He did this with Freedom TV. And you don't know how to do it, but you know that you want it to exist. So you build a set. They have a
Right.
couple of studios. They can you build a set and you put people on it and you put some lights, and it's just all sort of props and decorative. And like, if you look at the Scientology Media Productions documentary on the Scientology Network, you'll see sets for shows
Yep.
that have never happened.
Right.
And so then what happens? A bunch of people get ordered, figure this thing out. They all sit down to do it. Nobody can do it. He micromanages it to death, and then they move on. They
Exactly.
just get
Exactly.
excited about some new shiny object. So, if anybody wants to start a betting pool, this Dianetic show with Jason Doring and what's her name, it ain't never going to happen.
Yeah. Erica Christensen, I think they said,
Yeah.
yeah.
Plus, I mean, I don't, like the studios at Scientology Media Productions, they don't use them for shooting. They're full of tables, 4 by 8 foot tables. And then on those tables, they lay out Xerox pictures of all of the footage that they've collected to make these documentaries for the events. They do what are called paper edits. Like, they'll lay them all out with all the dialogue and the sequencing, and literally, like, you could spend like every single thing in the video is laid out in paper on a table. That's how Miscavige does it. And
Really?
that's what they use the studios. I mean, it's not a bad way of doing it. I would never do it that way because I don't have 100 people working for me that are just, going to do that kind of stuff. But, and then, he would go down the tables and like, make a bunch of notes and move things around, and then they'd figure out how to write a speech. It's so that whole place is set up. That was one of my objections when I was like,
What?
please forgive me for being overly obsessed with my own aesthetic goals, but I really was, or I wouldn't have been doing that work. But it
Of
was,
course.
but
What an interesting thing. Yeah, please. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, but yeah, that's how they've always done it. I don't know where he got that from. I've never worked in broadcast television on those kinds of documentaries. Maybe they do it that way. I don't know. Uh, but
New
yeah,
thing.
and if you look at the documentaries on the Scientology network, they're all structured around. They're very similar to the Discovery Channel. They're structured like the Modern Marvels, most specifically.
Hmm.
There's a show on Discovery. I don't know if it still exists, but it's a really interesting show. I mean, they've covered like UPS and Porsche and BMW and Mercedes and Rolex, and they intricately take you through how these things are created, right?
Right.
And they're
Right.
fascinating. Like they're
They can be.
really
Yeah, absolutely.
fascinating. Yeah,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah. Yeah.
the guy that did the narration on those for the Discovery Channel, we hired him to do the Dynetics book on tape.
Right.
So, because and I just I should add that when we hired him to do the Science of Survival, which has all that way more horrific anti-gay stuff than the Dianetics book, he called up and said, "I won't work for you guys anymore." So
Wow. Good for him.
yeah,
Good for
yeah,
him.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
That's
happened twice, and this guy
wow.
was one of the biggest names in voiceover. But
Damn. Yeah.
these documentaries are very much modeled. Like we even had meetings with entities that are responsible for producing like Modern Marvels and things. So he was really trying to emulate like a television station, which is weird because they're all they're all ad driven.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
and they do massive research into what audiences want to see, right?
Hmm.
But he doesn't have to put ads on. He pays for the whole station. Like
Right.
people don't even donate for it. Scientology just pays whatever that is. I mean, the DirecTV deal was $10 million for, I don't know, 4 years or something. So I
Right.
guess they probably had to renew it. And it really struck me that he was not even trying to find something original to do with all of that power.
I wonder how, for all of his shotgunning around that I seem to see him doing over the years, and I'm not just informed by you here today, but I remember when I was in Scientology, there were various fads or various things that would come around, books that Miscavige would become, very interested in or thought were very interesting. There was interesting marketing stuff. There was a guy who wrote a book. I can't remember his name. I read the book twice because I thought it was an interesting take on marketing. Who had done the new Coke thing back in the 80s,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. I know who you're talking
That guy.
about. He wrote, yeah,
Yeah.
he was
Miscavige got all about that guy for a while, didn't
yeah,
he?
yeah.
Like,
What
oh, you
the
guys
hell
need to
was,
read this book and just do this, Like I kind of
yeah,
get the idea that he thinks that the product sells itself and you idiots just aren't getting it in front of enough people for it to do that or something.
yeah.
You
Well,
know,
eventually
like
he
like
just, yeah,
like he doesn't understand at a basic level that people hate Scientology. I don't think
yeah.
he
The
gets
other thing he doesn't understand is that Scientology got to where it is because of word of mouth.
right,
And he
right,
took away the Scientology's voice to speak word of mouth, and he just proclaimed, nobody can answer questions without screwing it up. So I just want people to walk into a building and push a button and watch a
right.
video.
And that's
So
this one more step in not only moving away from how Hubbard said to run things, but which arguably is in an earlier time, and things should be
Yeah.
changed from how Hubbard said to run things. But we're talking like thematically, he's changing things. Like, what do you mean, Div 6 staff don't talk to the public? What I mean, Hubbard would be rolling over in his grave at the concept of that. Any salesperson would. What? You expect this to just sell itself?
Well,
Like,
yeah, no, he
you
did. I
know?
mean, he said, I want it push button. I want it. He said, just add water is what he would call it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it doesn't
I
work that
mean,
way.
he said, I don't want some kid in Timbuktu who's been in Scientology for 2 weeks and decided to join staff. I don't want him answering questions. He'll screw it up. So,
Right.
yeah, and just so you know, just it's a complete obscure piece of trivia,
Sure.
but you worked on the Industry of Death Museum.
Uh-huh.
And because that was a self-guided tour,
Yep.
which is what it was, the assignment was to make a self-guided tour with all those screens and buttons and all that.
Yep.
That was the germ for the Div 6.
Wow. And
Yeah,
it's two completely different
yeah, I
things.
mean, that's where it came from. He was like, if we
Wow.
could do that self-guided tour, we can do a self-guided tour of Scientology for people, right? So
Right.
yeah, but
He's
I
full
think
of
I
bright
think
ideas
the
that go
the thing
nowhere.
about the Div 6, not, let me just to clarify, them not talking to
Yeah.
the public, that really was only for the person that walked in for the first time, because
Right.
he was worried that he was always worried that Scientologists, especially staff members, they would corrupt people with bad ideas. Like, there's been no new staff at Gold for 30, 25 years probably,
Right?
because he
Where's,
would
I
say,
mean,
well, I don't want to bring up new SEER members here because you guys will just corrupt them. Like,
this is
anyway,
where Miscavige's psychosis just
yeah,
totally
he's
gets in
just
the
totally
way.
crazy.
Yeah, it's just totally
Yeah,
nuts. And then that,
yeah,
and I'm glad we could come to this place where we can kind of see very plainly that it really does come down to individual decisions that are just madhouse stupid on the part of Miscavige, because he's an incompetent person. And whether his incompetence is driven by pathology or driven by ignorance or driven by ego or a combination of these things, or whether Tom Cruise is in his ear and he gets these wild ideas and, oh, okay, we'll implement it this way. And he's just constantly frustrated at not getting results, and then he keeps blaming these people
yeah,
because he's the perfect guy with all the perfect ideas, and
yeah,
you bozos just can't do it right. This is
yeah.
a recipe for the disaster that is Scientology. So you can't help but think, of course, this thing is going to shrink, shrink, shrink organically because of his decision making. And that's where I come back to the boutique thing, because what's the one thing he's got going for him? These fucking whales. They just won't stop throwing money at him. Right. And I
Yeah,
don't know if he
totally.
even understands why,
Well,
or cares at
I
this
mean,
point.
part of it is, it's a very insulated bubble, and Scientology does have the capacity uh, to wrap people in a warm blanket of emotional security.
Yes,
Okay,
that's right.
this is, you want to
Right.
know why John Travolta is still in Scientology? It's because they've had him wrapped in that. He's gone through some horrendous personal trials in his life. And
Yeah.
Scientology's always been there to kind of manage his, emotional dysregulation, this, that, and the other. And a
Yeah.
lot of these guys, I mean, they're kings of the hill. These guys, they're really treated like royalty. And Miscavige, they throw a lot of money at him, and he throws some of that money back. You go to the flag building, can't remember what floor it's on, uh, but in the corners, there's these very large, spacious, well-appointed lounges that are only there for, depending on how much money you gave,
Mm,
right? Like,
mm,
if you gave this much, you can get into this lounge. These places are like, man, they're like really opulent. You've got yeah, they were designed by one of the best architecture firms in the world. So he's
right.
also creating this universe for them, which is really nice to live in. You
Yes.
can get
Yeah.
a $100 bottle of wine at the whatever that restaurant is, and a steak where the chef was trained at the number one steakhouse in New York. He
Right.
was sent up there and trained how to make it. So, there is a 5-star level that he's then providing back for them.
And that's exactly what he's good at, right? That's what I mean is there's a skill set there. Managing rich people is not an easy skill
Yeah.
set. It is something he's figured out to a degree so far that's workable to some degree. His ability to manage lower rungs of the organizational ladder absolutely don't exist at all in any kind of, humane, compassionate way. He treats everybody like dirt, except for these upper
Yeah,
class.
and I also think he doesn't get enough credit for all the dirty tricks. Like they think somehow this is spread out across OSA, right? And I might get a lot of pushback for saying this, but
No, tell me.
Miscavige, he has an army of lawyers.
Mhm.
They have over 100 law firms on retainer. He has a long list of PIs or legal cutouts, go-betweens
Yep.
that he can go to and then have them hire somebody who will then hire somebody to go
Right.
kill someone's dog,
Sure.
right? Or whatever it is. But most of that, from what I saw, that's him. That's not Mike Rinder or a bunch of, I mean, sure, they know about things, but they're like shutting up because they're fearing for their lives. But
Right.
it's really him. Like he has his, because he doesn't trust any of those people.
Right.
So he's got his, his mercs, his mercenaries, it's just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's just like at ASI, when I was working at ASI, if you showed up, he had this. Do you remember when there was a legitimate threat on his life? Somebody was going to assassinate him with a sniper rifle. Remember
I've
that?
no,
Oh no, it
I'm
was
sorry you're
I
bringing up
don't
something
remember
I've
when
never.
it was in the 2000s. A guy, he was a nut, and
Wow.
and it was legit. The guy went to prison. He was
Excuse
legitimately,
me. I didn't
yeah,
know about any of this.
he was legitimately plotting. And this is when, do you remember when
Wow.
Miscavige's security detail became private?
I do.
Yeah,
I
that's
do remember that.
because of the attempted assassination. Like
Oh,
he
okay.
felt he needed a whole higher level of security. So
Right.
he hooked up with this company, Talon. They're like a
That's right.
Blackwater,
Yep.
and started hiring all their people. And so, and I never interacted with them because they were like, you know, don't talk, don't, you'd say hi to them and they just grunt, right?
Right.
But if you showed up at ASI and there was one of these guys standing at the gate, and they all dressed the same, desert boots and camo gear and subtle,
So,
but stuff.
wow.
But
Wow.
no, but like they had the nylon desert pants, like it
Wow.
was tactical clothing,
Oh, that
like
wasn't business
clothing.
suits. It wasn't like business executive
No, no,
bodyguarding.
no,
It
no,
was
no, 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 no. And
tactical.
they all had Glocks. They all had the same Glock.
Jesus. So
And
this was actually very visible security.
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
armed.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're
yeah.
freaking armed, and they all had like those
Wraparound
blade
glasses and stuff. Yeah.
blade. Yeah, yeah, they're just like
Yeah.
mercs, right?
Of course.
Uh, so if there was one of those guys standing at the gate, then you knew Miscavige was there because that's like
Right.
he traveled around with these people, right?
Right.
So because he really, really, really did fear for his life. So I'm not sure why I brought that whole thing up, but
No, it's
yeah,
interesting though, it's just indicative of sort of again. Maybe this word doesn't mean what I think it means, but I do think when I come back circle back around to this boutique religion thing, I'm talking about a small catered experience for these rich people who expect rich catered experiences. That's what they're paying
yeah,
for, right? And that's what Miscavige clearly has no problem with even sending Sea Org members off to professional places, whether it's TV stations or steakhouses, to become these people who will serve up this because he ain't doing that for the
right.
crew. He ain't doing
No,
that for
no,
the book buyers, right?
no.
He's doing that for these upper IAS members, and that's who he cares about. And he really couldn't give a shit about anybody lower. He thinks he's got it all wrapped up when he doesn't understand the first thing about it. And that's what blows me away about the kind of inertia of how it keeps going despite this, gross levels of
Yeah.
incompetence at the top. It really blows me away
Yeah,
that he's
I mean,
managing to keep it going.
yeah, I just wouldn't refer to it as boutique because that word
Maybe it's the wrong
suggests,
word.
yeah, because it suggests like entities that are boutique, they want to be boutique. like they're not like we're boutique, but we're gonna go big. No, like you go
Mm.
into like a boutique hair place in Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's its own very special rarefied thing. But
Yeah.
I don't think maybe or it might accidentally become sort of boutiquey, but it's
I
always
think
gonna
that's where it's going. I think that's
yeah,
where.
and I don't disagree, but it's always gonna be those people, they're always gonna think that they're actually the vanguard.
Yes, there is
Yeah,
this weird thing going on where
yeah,
there's this litany or this sort of dogma of expansion and progression,
right,
but we all know, and we can't really just go, okay, brainwashing and mind control, and these people have no idea. Clearly, these are smart people who have some idea that Scientology ain't doing what it says
right,
it's doing. They're not all morons. But they
right.
stay because look at all this catered VIP wonderful stuff I get, and it does make them feel really good. They have a peak experience in an auditing session. Man, I'll pay $10,000 for that, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I came across an article that I had saved from when I was researching some stuff, and it's from Scientific America. It's called Spiritual Narcissism. It's a really
Yeah,
fascinating
yeah,
article. And there's a quote from some, I think he's a Tibetan philosopher or leader, whatever, and he said, you know, the ego is so clever at taking things over and using them for its own purposes, including spirituality.
yes,
So it's
yes,
kind of that these people, they're really on this massive ego trip.
yep,
Uh, and they've confused that for being spiritual. But they do think they're super beings, and they
yep,
do think they're on the vanguard, like they will be in 1,000 years from now, the people that saved humanity. They
that's right.
just, you know, they believe it, and they get to stand up on stages and get huge trophies and do all this crazy stuff.
It's all and all this validation and we
Yeah.
forget as we sit here on these mics talking about this, the peak experience of standing on a stage and having people validating you, standing
Yeah.
up in a room where everybody believes the same thing, however crazy it might be, and you feel the community and the group of that. And
Yeah.
there's and that's raw, that is primitive, that is like as in down deep as it gets for us,
Yeah,
you know.
and I mean, I knew people that were lusting after getting a religious freedom medal. Like that should be a selfless act of altruistic contribution. But
Right.
these people, they're lusting because of the status.
That's right.
The Agami boys, you know who they are.
Yeah.
Their dad, David Agami, they own the condo that Tom Cruise lives in. Uh, and they're Mexican. They're sweet kids. They're raised in Scientology, so they don't know any better. You know, their father is very wealthy, and they run applied scholastics. You know, the educational Scientology stuff. In Mexico, they've done this huge program, and they are really. I spoke with them. They wanted me to help them, like with media and stuff. Their entire lives are these two rich kids who don't have to work for a living, and they run this whole applied scholastics thing just because they are hoping they can win a freedom medal. I mean, this is their entire purpose of living is to do this. So yeah,
Right.
and there's others as well. I mean, it's like, and you know, some of them I can tell you you're never going to get it because I've heard the comments about them. You know, it's like,
Yeah, exactly. Once you're in Miscavige's doghouse, you don't come out.
yeah, it's just,
You
you know,
know.
you have to kind of, you have to you have to have a good story. Like they have to be able to craft it into a good story. It
Right.
might be amazing, something amazing that you did, but if it's not a good story, then it.
No, no narrative, no
Yeah,
story.
but you know, the other thing about that rarefied five-star group, you know, that's
Yeah.
in the warm, moist bubble of emotional security that Scientology wraps around them,
Hmm.
is there's this something that I think is really very important to our us individually, which is being relevant. Like I know I really struggled with this because I had all this relevancy because of my position in Scientology, right?
Yeah.
And I was like a white hat guy. You know, I spoke a week ago with a top executive who I knew, who I'm not going to, but whatever.
Sure.
and he was saying, "Oh yeah, Dave used to talk about you all the time." Like I had this, and that was what, a positive thing, right? So I had all of this, like, I was kind of like a go-to guy to handle problems, and I'd taken them out of the wilderness of making really shitty films and making good films. And so you become really relevant, and you're losing the context of, well, what am I really relevant in? Because you don't know,
Right.
right? Like I
Right.
could walk into anywhere. Yeah, I drove my older son. He was 12 years old. I had a week off, and I threw him in the car, and I said, "We're going to drive up to San Francisco. I'm going to show you where I grew up as a little kid and where I started college and blah blah blah." So we drove up there, and we're like bopping around Chinatown, which is the San Francisco Ideal Org, which was one of the first. It was a real big deal. It's right on the outskirts of Chinatown.
Mhm.
So I thought, I'm going to blow my kid's mind and take him to Chinatown. We're going to have a dim sum lunch. We're just going to sit there for 3 hours and eat dim sum. And we're walking by the org, and I'm like, oh, we should just go in and do a tour. I'd really love to see it, because I was involved in the whole Div 6 thing, but I couldn't go in. I had to call Gold and say, can you do me a favor? Call somebody up, an exec strata or something. Have them call the ED at the San Francisco org and tell them I'm going to come in. Because if I went in there and they said, who are you? And I told them, they would just freak out because they wouldn't know what to do. Like, what do we do with this guy, right? This
Mm.
guy is the one who
Mm.
made all these films that everybody sees. Da, 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 da. So you become really relevant. You get what I'm saying? You get this kind of relevancy, and it's not transferable. So it can become very difficult to pick up the thread of your life post that. I mean, I really
Yeah.
struggled with that. It's something that I still struggle with that. And I don't think that I'm some special shit for having done all that stuff. I've really managed to put it all in perspective, and essentially, without getting into the whole story, but I was 23 years old. And recently I went, wait a minute, what was I doing before I got into Scientology?
Right.
Because that really interrupted it for, almost 50 years. And so at some point, the whole thing just becomes like a side trip. It becomes like you were just sidetracked.
A kind of a kind of a sort of a consequence of sunk cost fallacy in a way.
Yeah, I think in a way, I mean,
A little bit, you know?
it's not so much throwing good money after bad
Yeah,
as it is, well, who am I? If I'm defined by all of this,
that's
who
right.
am I?
That's right.
So
I can't just leave. I'd be nobody. I'd be
yeah, because
nothing.
yeah,
Like like I thought that's what kept me in the RPF.
yeah,
I mean, it's not the same thing as relevancy, exactly what you're describing, but it's along the same thinking. It's like, but if I leave this as bad as it is,
yeah.
I'll have nothing.
Yeah, and as
Yeah.
much trouble as you're in, and as difficult as that situation may be,
Yeah.
you're still in trouble while being in the most ethical group that's saving humanity.
That's right.
So it's always going to have some kind of cachet. I had this thought the other day I'm going to share with you, because it might have been on your Jubilee episode,
Oh, yeah.
which I watched the entire thing, okay, at full speed, at regular speed.
At regular speed.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, yeah. I kind of guessed who was on it, because Alex had, broken his. I shouldn't say that. He didn't break his NDA, but he gave me enough hints about the thing that I kind of, because he was going to be in LA and he wanted to hang out, but whatever.
Right.
But yeah, I watched the whole thing, and somebody, I think it might have been Liz, mentioned something. It was a contrast and compare thing about, oh, well, the Scientology believes in helping the able be more, helping the able be more able, which is like the witnesses are like, everybody's just a piece of trash, right? You're just horrible, and you just need to wait for Armageddon. Remember that whole thing
Oh,
they were
yeah.
talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought about that, and I thought, wait a minute, that's bullshit. This is not against Liz, because what she
Mm,
said was perfectly right.
yeah.
But when they say that we're here to help the able more able, what they really mean is, and we'll help you. So what does that make you? It automatically folds you into the more able. So
You got it.
yeah, so it's just another kind of love bombing, brainwashing,
That's
a
right.
piece of persuasion that, like, we're here to help the able more able. Like, dude, you're so able. We can help. Yeah, so it's like other people are saying, yeah, you're really screwed up and we can help you find redemption. Scientology saying, oh, no, 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 you're perfect. We'll help you be perfect again. So
That's
same
right.
crap.
That exactly, and you're absolutely right. The subtlety of the language is sometimes, sometimes people, you got to look twice or three times to see it. Phrases like that, even the helping the able be more able, do double duty in terms of, well, it's also code language for we only let people in here who have money because they're the able. See, the
Yeah.
disabled, the unable, that's the homeless dude down the street. We're not here for him. Fuck that guy.
Well, yeah,
You
but I mean,
talk like that in the church.
yeah, I think,
I'm not making this up,
yeah, I think more pointedly, it's about making you feel
Totally. No,
like
totally.
because I tell you,
Yeah.
do you remember um, the Scientology free school? Do you remember that?
Scientology free
Free
school?
school?
I do not have any
Free.
memory of that. I
Okay,
went to
so
Apple schools. We definitely
this
paid for
isn't,
that.
yeah, this isn't policy. It was actually in one of the films that I did.
Oh,
So Hubbard did this thing. So there's always a lot of people on course. Well, not anymore, but there used to be a lot of people taking auditor training courses.
yeah.
And everybody has to audit somebody to
Yep.
fulfill their requirement for finishing the course. If it's just one simple course and you do like a little mini internship, you have to audit a couple people. And then if you do an actual internship, you have to audit a lot of people. So it was kind of like barber school. You go get a cheap haircut because people were learning to cut hair. And so Hubbard had written this thing that like, underprivileged people, like literally like homeless people,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. You're talking about Free Scientology Center. Got it. Not
center, yeah, free
school. It was Free
Scientology center. Yeah,
Scientology Center. And that
yeah,
was a whole policy. And yes, that was a thing. And we did that all of once in 27 years I was in.
yeah, exactly. I know it was
Yeah.
never, I don't think it was ever canceled. They just dropped the whole thing. So but just because that thing exists, I really think the making able more able is just a trick
Oh no, I'm
because
telling you, I'm
yeah,
suggesting it does both things at the same time. That's
yeah,
what's brilliant about those kinds of
yeah,
phrases is the double, triple, quadruple duty they can do depending on the context in which you are using them. I'm not at
yeah,
all saying anything. I think everything you said is
yeah,
spot on. It just also happens to have this other phrasing too.
yeah,
And that's where
yeah,
Hubbard's writing skills, I think, served him best is coming up with phrasing that he could. It's funny because you talk to John Atack and you go down some of these rabbit holes with magic and magicians and stuff like that, and you come to this place where you realize Hubbard was laughing at us the whole time because he's saying and doing things in plain sight that we're not seeing,
yeah,
you know. And
yeah,
every time he's fooling us with it, he's laughing at us. And once that got clear to me, that was actually the final nail for me in letting it go, was realizing he was just laughing at us the whole time. Not that that's all he was doing, but
right.
that was at the bottom of it was like, what? It was a big thing for me to see
Yeah, I
that
mean,
sort of,
yeah, it's,
I've got them all so fooled.
yeah, no, yeah, I know, I completely can see that. I mean, I was just kind of zoned out because I was comparing sort of that moment when I was like, no, I should not be here. It may, it took me another 15 years to leave, but you have this moment where you're like, no, no, this is a mistake. I shouldn't be here. And, for me, it was seeing Miscavige abuse some executives over not having a Dianetics campaign. Believe you me, this thing doesn't work, man, some heads are going to roll. If this
And
Dianetics campaign,
there's so few left to roll. That's one
yeah,
of the things
that's
that's
yeah.
so
Well, there's the
interesting right
guys.
now.
I mean, he's got the oligarchs in L.A. So I mean, yeah, there's no exec strata, and there's no watchdog committee, and there's no CMO up
Nope.
at Gold. There isn't. I mean, there's still CMO's pretty a big deal at Flag, right, in L.A.
He has what you might think of as he's turned what you I'll strain some analogies right now.
Okay,
You have this multi-layer
please.
organizational structure. I've laid it all out. We've seen maps and grids and
Right,
graphics of this, with all the different layers of Scientology management. He's gutted the entire top of that, and he micromanages. And he
right,
micromanages in a way that's like just wackadoodle, and nobody's safe in his inner circle. And it's been this way
right.
for many, many, many
Hmm.
years now, decades. So that creates a phenomenon where nobody wants to be in his inner circle either. I mean, after a while, word does get out. And so Miscavige is in this place now where he's kind of painted himself into a corner as a leader because he won't trust anybody, can't trust anybody, has a psychotic level of distrust of other human beings, and thinks at the same time that they're all a bunch of evil boobs trying to undo him or corrupt his intent or something. So he's in a really, really worst possible place mentally to be running an organization that
Yeah,
way. And
yeah,
he
and yeah,
mind all these people who were more than willing to lay down their lives for this organization. Well, he's gone through all those people. They're all gone now. And so I don't know how he
but
keeps this thing going at this
you're
point.
referring to like Guillaume Lazare and those, yeah,
Yeah,
those
the
guys are all
diehard.
gone, but there's a whole nother generation.
But
Uh,
there are a lot fewer of them, and they are a lot less experienced, knowledgeable, worldly. Like they just don't have what
yeah,
those older guys had. At least Ray Midoff lived in the real world for a long time before he got in. Same with Heber, same with Guillaume. And they
yeah.
they they proved their worth. Guillaume Lessev was the guy catching fish in the river to feed the CLO EU crew because he was the cook. That was his job. He
Mm.
was before he was EDN, he was a cook
Really,
in
he
EU,
was
right?
upgraded from that.
And he was the guy who cared about everybody so much that he was getting up in the morning and going fishing to feed the crew because there was no
Wow,
goddamn money at the
wow,
CLO. I mean, these were
crazy.
people who were going and giving blood to be able to make some money to eat. And this is how hardcore they were about being Sea Org members. And he gets up to the top, and these other guys get up to the top in the wild, 70s and heyday of this when Hubbard was still around. And then Miscavige comes along, and for the last 30, 40 years, he's just been gutting this thing. And it just doesn't have, there's no endless supply of people, although he seems to think there is. And that's what I find interesting about
Well,
the
he's
current
got this
situation.
cadre of oligarchs.
He does.
Oh
He does.
yeah,
That's the, yeah.
he's like people like Molly Hortling, who runs S&P, who
Oh,
set
is that what
up
she's
the
doing now? I
when
wondered
I
what
was
she was
when
up
I
to.
was there when I was there she was like a
She
studio
was.
manager or whatever. But she's like Molly Hortling, like what's her name, who used to run Mad Hatter, Chandra Lawrenson,
Hmm.
who
Hmm.
helps to run S&P. And then there's
Yeah.
also at S&P, there's, I don't know what happened to her, the little squeaky girl, Erin Banks. I used to,
Oh, yeah, yeah, the PR girl. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. There
she
was
was
one
an
of those.
actress, and she
Yeah,
used
yeah.
to do some little jobs up at Gold, and then
She
I
ended
don't know
up in
how.
OSA PR, I think, and then
Yeah, that makes sense.
happened to
That
her.
makes sense. Yeah,
Don't know
she,
what
but
happened to her after that. But
yeah, and
there's,
then you,
but I'm talking more about like upper middle management, for example. Those places are gutted. There's like
yeah, but
three people in
yeah,
West US management right now, like three people running all the
yeah,
orgs.
but
That's crazy.
that's the old business model.
Oh,
You know,
clearly, that's kind
yeah,
of what
like
I'm
the
wondering about. Is this morphing into
Mormons
something else?
have, what do
Yeah,
they call their top guy? He's the prophet.
the prophet.
Yeah, and nobody knows his name really unless you're in, because they don't want to have strong personalities. I learned on one of the podcasts
Oh,
recently.
maybe. I mean, it's not hard to find though. I know who the.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
but they
look these
don't,
people up.
they are against letting any individual rise up as a powerful leader.
Right,
But
right.
they have like 12 guys or something like that. And it's like the
Yeah,
whole
there's
deal.
there's a secession line, and
Yeah.
they know who the next like 15 people in line are
Yeah. And
going to be.
they have
Yeah.
like this board of people,
Yep.
and that's what Miscavige has. He's like Putin, he's like an oligarch. And then he's got Molly's husband, Jason Hortling. And then I'm trying to think of these other guys. They came up from Flag. You probably would know who they
I
are.
knew Molly and Jason well because I worked with them in PAC.
Yeah, yeah, and they're nice people. I mean, it's
Yeah,
just
they
to have a
are.
conversation with.
Sure.
And Molly did amazing things like setting up bridge,
Bridge.
and
Yep.
setting up the December Center. And I was in meetings where Miscavige just like brutalized her.
Yeah.
She's a
That's what I mean.
large woman. She's very pretty. She's
Hmm.
a plus size woman. That was called out and shamed.
Yep.
She's from the South, so she has an accent. That
Yep.
was called out as her just being, stupid. I would sit there and like, oh my God.
And
But
Miscavige has no idea how hard that girl, that woman, sorry, I should say, worked
yeah,
for decades. I mean, I watched her. She was the
yeah.
COCMO pack
Oh, that's
before she
right.
got on that whole
Right.
Miscavige train. And I mean, she was hell on wheels, man. That girl could, I mean, she
Yeah.
could really rip your face off. But at the same time, I knew her as a person and I knew she was a good, decent, actual human being. But, there was this whole cover, this whole Sea Org CMO thing that
Yeah,
she
I
would
mean
go on. Yeah,
the accepted management style in the Sea Org is your juniors need to fear you,
that's
or
right.
you're just a crappy manager. So, but
That's
yeah,
and that
he
doesn't
does
have
have,
longevity. That's what I mean. That doesn't have longevity. That kind of
yeah,
thing dies off sooner than later. Maybe it takes a generation, maybe it takes two,
yeah.
but it
But
dies.
the
100%
guy
of the time it does.
the guys that I saw running it, like it really started. Well, it started around 2013 when Miscavige blew the base, which he did, and never went back. And not long after that, he is when he announced that LA org was going to be Sea Org.
Yes, that's
Like I
right.
was literally sitting there at ASI working. It was like 7 o'clock at night, writing something. And he bopped into the room wearing a leather jacket and a scarf, and Lou with their boots, and like they're all like, and they're laughing it up like they're about to go out on a date. And he's like, "Hey, I'll see you later." He's talking to me and a couple other guys who were working there. He said, "I'll see you later. I got to run down to LA day and just take care of something. LA Oregon, take care of something." That was the way he. And then he went down there, fired everybody. It was just huge. It was like a
Yeah.
fucking
It was like
like a
overnight, it was a
bloodbath.
New York org.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
then he installed the
Yeah.
sewer group. One of those was one of the oligarchs that runs, and then he put another one at the December Center, another one at where they do
Mhm.
compilations today. Somebody else runs that, and then SMP.
And,
And
and and what do you mean they're oligarchs? Who are these people?
well, like Molly, I would consider her. I mean, obviously,
Oh, so we're not
it'd be
talking
like
about real oligarchs,
no, no,
rich
no.
people. We're talking about Sea
I'm
Org.
saying
Okay.
the business model of making money he's adopted from the Mormons. The
Got it.
organizational model he's adopted from Putin.
Putin.
Okay,
Okay.
so and because it is run like an oligarchy.
Okay.
He is the oligarch, and then he is the main guy, and then we've got
Right.
like Molly and Jason and some guy I can't think of the names. You would know these guys. I just can't think
Yeah.
of them.
There's another guy whose name I know I won't say right now, who's apparently, because I've never met the man, but I've heard from literally 10 different people over the years that this guy is Miscavige sequel. Like he's just the worst. And they sent him down to South Africa for a while and now he's back and he might
Yeah,
be
I think
around.
I know who you're talking about. And so
Yeah.
those
This
guys,
guy he was ruthless.
yeah, and there's a couple.
Yeah.
Well, that's to stay out of trouble. And then
Yeah.
there's one or two more than he needs. Because you'd walk in one day and all of a sudden, like Molly and Chandra, they're just fucking gone. They're gone. And then you later that day you see them and they're like scrumming out a dumpster.
That's right.
And then
That's
a
what I'm
week
talking. Yeah.
later, they're giving you orders at a level of intensity because they don't want to go back.
Right.
So it's just a madhouse. It's like
Yeah.
working at Gold was like a summer camp compared to being in that situation at Scientology Media
Jesus.
Productions.
Jesus.
I
Well,
mean,
all I can say
except
is
it was a lot more convenient because it was 10 minutes from my house. So I didn't have to drive out to that godforsaken East Riverside, shithole that, it's just thick with flies from dairy farms. And
wow.
anyway, don't
Wow.
get me
I
started.
don't have that kind of local flavor. I've never been to Gold, but that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, I'm going to wrap up now because I think
yeah,
we've talked
no
about an
problem.
awful lot of stuff here, but I'm
Too
really,
much.
really well, I don't think too much. I think this is all this is stuff people want to know about. They want the inside skinny. It's hard to get. It's hard to understand and get your head around. And there's so much going on. We've gone from Mormon Church to SMP to, to the oligarchs to a lot of stuff here. And I always appreciate conversations like this because it helps give us a look at structurally kind of what's going on. There's all the
Yeah.
personalities of what's going on, but for me, David Miscavige's psychology is only part of the picture of where Scientology is going. It
Right.
doesn't all hinge just on him and his wild, whimsical ways. There are other things going on, like that socioeconomic thing I mentioned earlier. I think these are important things to bring into the mix, but it's a layered thing, and we don't know, what's anyway. There's a lot we don't know too, so a lot of
Yeah,
this
I
is
mean,
conjectural.
I think the only thing you could say for certain is that in some form or another, and I think speaks to Jeffrey's point about calling it a boutique,
Yeah,
it's always going to be here. It's like the
it's
Seventh-day
morphine. Yeah,
Adventists were
that's
this
right.
completely kooky doomsday Christian religion. And one of my kids was born at a Seventh-day Adventist hospital. I mean, they were also like the Mormons. They were like, they were forged in the Old West.
Yep,
They're still around and they do a bunch of stuff and they got lots of members. So these things
true.
they don't go away easily. I do think that Scientology will become a an elite, more not a boutique. I really object to that word.
Fair
More,
enough. I get that.
yeah, more like an elite club
Yeah,
for these hyper spiritual people whose spirituality they're confusing with their ego.
I agree.
And which is, yeah, that's kind of how I see the whole thing. But there's,
Fair enough. I'll go with that description. It accomplishes the
yeah,
same
and it
purpose as what
shouldn't
I
go
meant.
away. If somebody said, I heard somebody say, well, they should just round up all the books and burn them. I'm like, no, we don't burn books. Like that's part of our history. You should be able to like marvel at the stupidity, like let's, it's more
I
of a
agree.
chance of it not repeating itself if you leave it in some kind of, intact
That's
in
right.
some, as long as it's no longer abusing people.
Exactly. All right, man. Well, Mitch, thanks a lot for dropping by here and reaching out to me about this. As always, I really, really appreciate your input and thoughts and experiences on all this and your willingness to talk about it. So thanks.
Yeah, I really like our conversations a lot, Chris. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with
Awesome,
you.
man. All right. Well, folks out there, I hope you enjoyed this too. Hope you found it educational, informative, and entertaining as we are always trying to. That's the goal here. And I hope you will support the channel, support the show. It's been a long time since I've had anybody sign up on Patreon, by the way. So if you do enjoy my work and you think this is something worth contributing to, and I hope it is, then, consider joining me on Patreon. Even $1 a month actually makes a little bit of a difference to me. So thank you very much. And on that happy note, I will see you guys next week. Bye bye.
Thanks, Chris.